And we're live. Welcome, everybody. This is the Reality Czars podcast, and I'm your only host tonight, Nate. Tony's at work, I think, and I've got Chris Polk on. Chris, you've been a friend of mine. We run in the same anarcho-Christian circles. I'm not sure if any of my audience has ever heard of you, but this is
Probably
kind of
not.
This is a cool time to introduce you, and I like what you do. And so, why don't you tell my audience, a little bit about yourself and where they can find you?
So I am Chris Polk. I am a fleet manager for a fleet of tractor trailers. I have a podcast called Blue Ribbon Podcast. It's on YouTube Sunday nights at 9. I am kind of a professional hornet's nest kicker. Where on TikTok, I'm really good at pissing people off on TikTok. And been a truck driver 25 years and started podcasting about 2015. And now it's become like a real thing where we do it every week and to build our brand and build our fleet and recruit drivers and stuff like that.
That's cool, man. So is that mostly what you guys talk about over there, or is it like?
Yeah, it's. It's funny because my boss, the owner of the company, and I got together kind of accidentally. He was getting ready to shut his fleet down because he was just done. 65 years old, I guess, and we bumped into each other. And I was in a really, really bad financial situation, and he provided an opportunity for me to dig my way out. And we got to be really close, got to be good friends. Well, he's your typical entrepreneurial, business-minded, fiscally conservative kind of guy. Socially socially liberal, but very fiscally conservative. Of course, we meet in
sounds like a meme of a libertarian from 2016.
Yeah, and so we meet in 2018. So we're post-Trump at this point. And I remember, just like one time, because he was a driver, right? So he was still driving full time, and we just only had like 2 trucks. And so we're just driving. We would just talk on the phone for hours and hours and hours. And I remember he said something one time that was positive about Trump. Well, being the anarchist, I responded to that, and he didn't know how to take it because he's like, well, obviously you're not a progressive liberal, right? And but I didn't like Trump, and he was kind of perplexed. And so I have introduced him to a narco-libertarianism kind of thing. And he paid me the greatest compliment on our show a few months ago. And he said that I had challenged him to think about things outside of the left-right paradigm. And so now he calls cops road pirates. And it's just funny because he, but he kind of saved me, and our getting together was just divine, and now we've built this program where we teach people that want to be owner operators in the trucking industry how to run a successful business. And we don't do it like anybody else does it. And so we're called the lunatics because a driver called us lunatics one time. And but we teach people how to, because he's a 46-year businessman, and he didn't give a shit about chrome. He don't care what your truck looks like. He don't care. He cares about one thing: maximizing revenue, minimizing expenses, and that makes bigger profits. And so it's been a lot of fun. And but yeah, it's a huge long story, and we can get into some of that because it goes to the core of who I am. And how I ended up here. The unbeliever thing, I wanted to do a podcast, but there's 168 hours a week, and most of mine are pretty well covered up. But my pastor asked me one time, Um, well, what's with this? What's with this anarchism? And I said, man, it's unbelief. Because we always had that talk about what was the greatest sin. The greatest sin is unbelief, right? Not believing in Jesus. And trying to think of something clever that would kind of get through to him. I said, it's unbelief. I don't believe in the state. I don't believe in its nobility. I don't believe in its goodness. I don't believe it should exist. I don't believe that it's valid. I don't believe that I don't believe in its authority, its magical powers. I'm not a believer, you know? And that kind of got through to him. And I thought, oh, wow, what a cool name. Unbeliever. I'll do a podcast. And that was like 3 years ago. And I haven't done shit. So,
Okay, well, see, that was the last time I heard. I thought you were still doing a show called The Unbeliever. I didn't know you were doing. What's the name of your new show? What's it called again?
this one,
Yeah, the
the
one that you're doing now, the
Blue Ribbon Podcast.
Blue Ribbon Podcast.
So,
That's cool, man.
to give the context to that, in 2010, I was a truck driver and took two kids. And I'm making, $800 a week. And my wife didn't work outside the home. We were homeschooling. And I just felt like I'd hit the ceiling. Like if I was going to make more money, I had to get in business. I had to be an entrepreneur. Trucking's what I knew. So I need to buy a truck. So I kind of started this journey on January 1st, 2011. And it was hard because there was there was all kinds of people to tell you what to do, but most of them were full of shit, And so as I went through over the next 4 years of kind of just kicking doors open and trying to make it work, I thought, well, this needs to be a podcast. So I just started Googling and I'm like, okay, how to make a podcast. And so I kind of figured it out, built a Squarespace website, bought a little snowball microphone, and
I haven't
recorded
done either of those things yet. I
recorded
don't have a website and I don't have a fucking microphone.
Well, and you unless you want to be unless you want to be a podcaster, it's really unnecessary with YouTube. But at that time, it was all audio. It was get listed on iTunes and do have your audio file and you're a podcast, right? So I figured out how to do it. I recorded the first episode about 6 times, all these different iterations, and I just recorded it over and over and over again until I liked it. And then I posted it. That was sometime in 2015. And I got a little bit of a following. Of course, Apple doesn't really show you what your real numbers are. See, I never knew how many people. And of course, trying to drive a truck full time and be a dad and all that stuff, it's really hard to be consistent. But I recorded like 38 episodes from 15 to 19. So obviously it was very, very, very inconsistent. I would leave it alone for months. And then I get a wild hair at my ass and I'm going to go do a podcast episode. And so I come to work for Larry. My business failed in April of 2017 and just complete destruction. And I came home and got a local job. And it was awful. I hated every minute of it. And so I'm almost divorced. My marriage is hanging by a thread. Broke. I'm about to get foreclosed and repossessed. I'm making just enough money to keep. I was like 60 days behind on like car payments and mortgage, and I couldn't get ahead, but I could at least keep lying to them and telling them that I was. And I had this Jerry Maguire moment. You watch Jerry Maguire?
Mm-hmm.
So that moment where he writes that manifesto, and you got the guy on the TV and he's click, 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 boom, and then he realizes what he's done. So I believe it was January 25th, 2018. I was sitting on a forklift, 3:00 in the morning. It was 10 degrees outside. I was freezing my ass off and I was miserable. And I remember thinking that, I used to have this truck that made $3,000 a week. And then I fucked it up, and it was gone. And I I was thinking, man, this sucks. I'm working 12 hours a day. I never see my kids. I'm constantly exhausted working. I get up at 1:30 in the morning. I get home at 5 and I go instantly to bed. I don't make enough money. And I would rather be driving 3,500 miles a week in a sleeper truck. I'd make more money and I wouldn't be this miserable. So I get my phone out of my pocket and I go to this Facebook group for the Carrier Release 2. And I wrote my little manifesto and I said, look, I was in business. I was at Landstar. I was doing the thing and I failed. And so I just need you to know that if you think there's a time coming down the road when you can get your shit together, that time's not coming. It's today. So if you don't have your savings plan, if you're not minding your expenses, if you're not running your business right, now is the time, because I failed and it wasn't Trump's fault and it wasn't the government's fault and it wasn't Landstar's fault and it wasn't the agent's fault. It was my fault. It was me. I did it. I killed the goose laying the golden eggs. And so if you don't want to suffer that same fate, then you need to get your shit together. Hit post, put my phone back in my pocket, and went on about my business. Well, then I start getting blown up from all these people that want me to come drive for them. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't drive for you if you had the last truck on earth, okay? Because I know you, a bunch of you shady motherfuckers. I know how y'all are. Then I get a message from Larry Long. And he says, I saw your post and I really respect everything that you said there. And I think we should have a conversation. And somebody else, I think, had said, you need to talk to Larry Long. So finally, with messages fly back and forth, we get on the phone. And 5 minutes in, I felt like I'd known him my whole life. And I'm like, holy shit, this is a businessman right here. This is not some truck driver that thought he was going to get rich by buying a second truck. This is a real foreshore businessman. And my wife and I are barely speaking at this point. And I went back and I looked at the numbers that I did with my truck in the last 90 days that I ran it before it blew up. And I took what I did and I put that into the formula, the pay formula that Larry used. And I went, okay, if all I do is that, I double my income. And if I double my income, foreclosure and bankruptcy and all that shit goes away. And so now I've got to walk into the dining room and tell my wife, who hates me, hey, I got an idea. And listen, she's done with my ideas. She has had enough. Yeah. She don't want to hear another word about my new idea. So I said, look, here's the math. I just showed her the math. Here's the mathematics. And the math says this. She was uninterested. And I had a couple more conversations with Larry. And so finally, Larry and I set up an interview in Moorhead, Kentucky. It's about halfway between our houses. And he said, well, the only way that I'm going to do this interview is if your wife comes with you. And I'm like, well, good luck with that, Hoss. And so I told her, and I'm like, listen, this guy wants an interview, but you have to come. And at first she agreed. And then we get ready to walk out the door. And she's like, I'm not going. And I said, yes, you are. Get in a fucking truck. And she was like, I'm not going. I'm like, if I have to drag you by your hair, you're getting in a fucking truck and we're going to Moorhead. So we go out there. She meets Larry, puts her at ease. So what's funny is when in a situation like this, you get paid on percentage of what you haul, right? Whatever the rate is. And I was getting 25%. And Larry loved FedEx Dedicated because he could put you on a dedicated route. He didn't have to fuck with you. He would just put you in the truck. You'd run the thing. And that was going to pay me like $1,800 a week, which was, again, life-saving. And, but I hate dedicated freight with a passion. I'm too wound up. I'm too high-strung. So I go to Indianapolis for orientation, and he walks up and he goes, listen, my FedEx thing fell apart. And I'm just going to have to let you run the board, which means you just get on the website and you just pick your own loads, right? And you just put them together. And I said, you bet you're a sweet ass old man I am. Watch this. And I proceeded to go out and make $90,000 in 9 months to me. And that works out to be about $300,000 to the truck in 9 months. I mean, I just went fucking nuts. And dug myself out of the hole. Got all my bills caught up, but to do $10,000 a month as a company driver when a month ago, my take home was like $2,800 a month, and now I'm making $10,000 a month. And he's taking wheelbarrow loads full of money to the bank, every week. He's happy. So anyway, that bonded, that secured the bond, and we started hiring some people because now he's fired up. He wants to rebuild the fleet, and dude, we hired some idiots. Just God.
There's a
And I
lot of
told him, I
idiots,
said,
man.
listen, man, I'd always done the math and been like, oh man, if I had 5 trucks and da 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 da, but if you have 5 trucks, you got 5 drivers. And I said, listen, if these morons are all we have to choose from, no thanks. I'll just get one truck. I've figured it out. I've learned from my lesson. I paid for my sins. I can have one truck. I can make a couple $100,000 a year. I'm good. But he's such a fascinating storyteller, and he's got this amazing background where he was a professional photographer for 35 years, and he used to go in and rebuild car dealerships back in the 70s and 80s and make them profitable. And I thought, man, what a cool story. So I begged him, dragged him for months, finally got him to come on the podcast. And we recorded it, posted it. We did 3 or 4 more episodes, and all of a sudden the phone starts ringing off the hook with really good drivers, like people that we were looking for, that were looking for us, that we didn't know. We had never had a way to connect, and all of a sudden, and the whole thing just turned and went the other direction. And so here we are. We just recorded episode 140 last Sunday. So that's kind of
man. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. It's been
That's
a
really
wild
cool,
ride.
Dude, I have been interested in driving trucks for a minute, just because it seems like there is some freedom to it. I've been in the food service industry basically my entire life, and I love it. I love being a chef. It's just there's no fucking money in it, dude.
Right.
And I've been at a point where I'm at the pinnacle of where I can be in my industry. Basically, I make more money than most chefs do, but it's not enough. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like I'm the king of the dipshits. That sort of thing. Not that chefs are dipshits, but chefs listening to this will understand what I mean. It's like you don't get paid well.
Right.
You just don't. And I'm trying to have I have a house here. I've got a wife. I've got kids. And I'm trying to keep. And 7 years ago, I was getting paid the exact same amount, and 7 years ago, it was enough.
Yeah.
Today, it's not enough. Like with all this inflation and crazy bullshit going on. And so, I've actually been just I was praying and I was giving it to God. I was like, I need something else. And lo and behold, God, literally, it's God. He gave me a lifeboat, and I just started a new job, and I'm out almost officially. I'm going to be, I don't know when this is going. This is live, so people are going to hear it. I don't fucking care. I'm going to be putting in my 30-day notice at my job here in the next couple weeks. And I'm going full time at this other spot. And I'm pretty fucking excited. And I will not be in the food service industry anymore. After almost touching I'm passing 15 years here pretty soon. But man, can you tell us how did your business fail? What did you do that fucked it up? If you, I mean, I don't know, you don't have to be.
Well, no, it's a good story. The first big mistake that truck drivers make, you spend a lot of time looking through that windshield by yourself, and you can convince yourself of all kinds of stuff. That of course, number one, everybody else is the problem, not you. So it's the dispatchers and the load planners and the fleet managers. They're the problem, not you. And if you could just get rid of those people, then I know how to drive a truck, shift gears, and back into docks and all that shit. Then everything else is cake. And so the first thing I did was lease a truck from a carrier, which is terrible. I made it work because I worked my ass off. I mean, gone 7, 8, 9 weeks at a time without going home. with a 2 and a 5-year-old at home. But I increased my income the first year. I think I made like 85 grand in 2011, and I'm like, okay, all right. So at least I can check the box. I increased my income by leasing the truck. So I leased that truck a second year, and I made like 95. I'm okay. Check the box again. I increased. I got better. My expenses went down. My revenue went up. But that truck was at the end of its life, and I'd give anything to have that truck right now. It was a 2007 Freightliner, and our wise overlords during the Bush administration came up with this EPA 07 emissions schedule that went up through 2010. And so, I'm sorry, EPA 04. And there was 04, there was 07, and there was 10. So in 07, all the trucks had to have diesel particulate filters. And in 2010, they had to have what's called selective catalytic reduction, where they burn the diesel exhaust fluid. So all the carriers went out and bought a shitload of 2007 trucks with 2006 engines. Well, my truck that I had for the 2 years was an 07 model with an 06 motor. But now the company wasn't going to lease it to me again because it had like 690,000 miles on it. And they're like, yep, this one's done. We're going to get rid of it. So now my only choices are trucks that are EPA 2010 or newer. So I chose a Peterbilt 386 with a ISX Cummins.
Would they possibly have sold you that truck?
If I wouldn't have been, if I would have, I could have bought it and paid way too much for it, but it was like 35 grand that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And that truck today would still be worth 35 grand. And even if it had $1.6 million on it, it would still be worth 35 right now. So my only choice is to get into this 2011 Peterbilt with a Cummins, and it had all the stuff. And in 7 months, that truck cost me $50,000 in downtime and repairs. It just every other week something was wrong. We changed everything from the turbo to the tailpipe. Nothing ever fixed it. I was in the shop constantly. And I'm thinking, God, if I just had my 07, I'd be hauling freight right now. And so now we're back down in the hole. Barely making any money because the damn truck won't run, and it's just these trucks are set up to where if the sensors sense the wrong thing, it just shuts the motor off. It derates you to 5 miles an hour and you're done, So it broke down on me in Des Moines, Iowa. And I went to the Peep dealer, and so I lost my load. I was on a $12,000 load going to Canada. Watched another guy drive off with my load. Every time I'd get on one of these giant ass loads, and the damn truck would break down, and and I'd be stuck again. So anyway, they fixed the truck, and I went into the Pete dealer and the service guy, and I'm like, okay, so what was wrong with it? And he was like, we don't know. We changed a hose and a fitting, and we played with the computer. And the lights are all out now. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I've heard that before. So I called it. There was a dealership that had started over in Council Bluffs, Iowa, called Lone Mountain. And I knew a couple of guys that got trucks from them, and it's like $3,500 down. And, and I called this girl and I said, what's the oldest truck you got? She said, 07 Freightliner. I said, I'm on my way. So I bounced over to Council Bluffs. I looked at the truck. It was rough, but it was $1,275 a month for 42 months or something. I'm like, fuck, I could swing that. And so I started doing all the paperwork. I called the company and said, I'm taking your Peterbilt back. And of course I had no idea at this point. Now I'm a real owner operator, and I've got to go to the IRS office, and I've got to set up an FEIN, and I've got to pay a $550 heavy use tax. And I got to do this shit I've never heard of. And so I was set in a hotel for 21 days in Council Bluffs, Iowa. No transportation, but a bike that I bought at Walmart that I took back before I left, returned it. So finally, I leased back onto the company I had just left. I was trying to get the Landstar because Landstar is kind of like this mecca for owner operators, but their qualification process is a nightmare. So after like 3 weeks, I'm like, fuck, I can't sit here anymore. So I called that company back and I'm like, hey, I got my own truck. Can I come back? And they're like, sure, no problem. So I bobtail up there, they throw stickers on the truck, and I take off. I did $160,000 in revenue in 2013, and 75,000 of that I did in 4 months in my truck. Um, it was, I just once I had a truck that would run, that wouldn't shut down for no damn reason, man, I hauled ass. So April of 14 comes around, and I'm like, okay, I'm in a better spot. I have to get to Landstar. So I left there, I went to Landstar. And number one, I didn't work hard enough. Number two, I did not have a savings plan at all. Number three, we were very, very, very loose with our spending. My truck, $3,000 a week cash flow, that shit gets away from you pretty quick if you're not careful. So December of 2015, I popped a motor, and 3 days before Christmas, and blew a motor in Ohio. A friend of mine from high school just happened to live close by. He picks me up. My wife comes and gets me. I leave the truck at the dealer, and they call me, I don't know, a couple days after Christmas, and they're like, yeah, you need a motor. It's $24,000. And I'm like, well, so we went to our pastor, and I'm like, hey, so we got a problem. And he was like, okay, so the motor's how much? 24,000. I said, yeah. He said, how much money do you have? I said, $350. And he's like, yeah, you have a problem. He's like, you need a miracle. And I'm like, yeah. So my wife and I are talking about it, and GoFundMe has just become a thing, And there was one called You Caring that had different fees than GoFundMe. And I just passed her. I'm like, what do you think? I mean, we're done. I mean, I have no money. And I said, should I do one of these giving campaigns? And he was like, yeah, So I wrote it and wrote it and wrote it and wrote it and rewrote it. Sent it to him. He was like, it's fine. My wife looked it over, and I'm like, okay. And I hit post, posted it on Facebook, turned my phone off, went to bed. Next morning, wake up, and like $5,000 has been donated. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So we're going to survive through the end of the month. And so then it's trickling in more and more and more, 50, 200, 500. My daughter's a fiddle player, and we met at a Chinese restaurant, and we all come together, and my wife comes from the fiddle lesson, and she drops 2 envelopes in front of me, and I open them up, and they're from the fiddle teacher, and it was a note from, I think, Bella Fleck's mother-in-law, who's a famous like jazz banjo player guy. Well, back up. So, yeah, I got to tell this part first. So, like, I think it was Wednesday night church, and my pastor wanted me to tell the story, and so I told the story. Now, as I'm standing there, I know I'm $2,500 short of making it through the end of the month, and but I didn't say anything. I'm just telling the story about, hey, we've been blessed, and all that, and so, but I know I'm $2,500 short. So, like, the next day, we go to this fiddle lesson, and my wife drops this envelope in front of me, and it was 2 $1,250 checks from Bell Flex Mama or something, and I just broke down in the Chinese restaurant, and I'm like, holy God, what the hell? So then I get a Facebook message from a guy I've never met, been Facebook friends with him, but I don't even know how we got to be friends. And he says, call me. I'm like, okay. So I called him, and he said, listen, been watching you for 5 years. You're busting your butt. I see the position you're in. My wife and I have heard from the Lord, and we're going to pay for the motor. I said, "You're going to do what?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm going to send you a check and we're going to pay for the motor." Okay. And so he sent a $24,000 check in the mail and paid for my motor. So January something of 2016, the Freightliner dealer puts the motor back together, and I go up there and I start hauling freight. But my mind wasn't right. I was really, really, really struggling with the grace of the situation, the provision of the situation, because everybody around me is, oh, grace and favor and grace and favor and grace and favor. Jesus took care of you. I'm like, yeah. But boy, I sure didn't deserve it. Right? I mean, because I listen, I
None
fucked
of
this
us
up.
do, man.
I
None
fucked
of
this
us
thing
do.
up, in unimaginable ways. And I know that I have not been running the business well. I know that I'm working hard. I've got a good work ethic. I can go out and work hard, but it's the real hard stuff. It's the being the what you call it, the steward. That's what I wasn't doing. That's what we weren't doing. So the 2016 market was soft. It was a struggle. Um, I'm just not I'm not doing well. And mentally, my head's not in it. I'm trying. I'm digging, but I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not making any traction. And September 21st, my father-in-law dropped dead on his tractor, and I broke because I went, okay, so here I am. I'm this truck driver, big owner operator guy. I'm not doing very well. I'm not very successful. And my kids never see me. And I mean, he had more time and he's gone. And I just like had a nervous breakdown. And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to sell the truck and I'm going to come home and I'll do something. And, I got the bright ass idea to go drive a school bus. That was unfortunate. But I was off the road for 2 months, October 27th to December 27th. And at least my head went and I cleared. And I got to Christmas and I went, okay, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. I still have this truck because it wasn't selling. Nobody wanted it. And I went, okay, if you had it to do over again, knowing what you know now, how would you do it different? How would you plan different? How would you book loads different? What would you do different? And I went, okay, I'm just going to try this again. So I jump back in the truck and I take off. I had the biggest quarter in any of the time, made $50,000 to the truck. And of course, so I was on track for a $250,000 gross year, biggest year possible, right? April 7th, 2017, motor broke again. Now we're done. Now we're done. There's no angels coming. There's no investors coming. There's the heavens not opening up. We are done. It's a boat anchor. Fortunately, I have a habit of breaking down close to childhood friends. A friend of mine in Pennsylvania lived about an hour away. He comes and picks my broke ass up. I go hang out at his house for a couple of days. Got a company job driving for Swift. Drove for Swift 30 days and lived to tell about it. But I sold the truck for $5,000 on Facebook Marketplace and walked away. So got the drive for Swift. Stuff at home, is not good. And I'm like, I can't do over the road anymore. So I go home, local job. And once, like every third week, I had to take an overnight trip to North Carolina to get acetylene, and they'd put you up in a hotel. And it was this time away from the house. It was, that's one thing about truck driving is you kind of get all this solitude time. So I went to the bank. I walked in and I'm like, hey, can you print me some bank statements? And she was like, yeah, what do you need? And I said, well, I need 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. And she was like, all of them? I'm like, yeah, all of them. So she puts them on a stick and I go to Kinko's or whatever. And it was, big 3-ring binder. And when I would go on those Goldsboro trips, I would go through there with a highlighter, and I just went through I don't know, 500 pages of bank statements. And at the end, what I got to was, this was your fault. You fucked this up. And I came up with 18 cents a mile. If I would have saved 18 cents a mile for every mile that I drove that truck, I not only would have just, when the motor broke in December of 2015, I would have went, oh, what an unfortunate event. Let me just write y'all a check and y'all fix the motor. And the second time it broke, I went, oh, how unfortunate. Y'all just let me write y'all a check from my bank and we'll pay for it. I didn't need heaven. I don't mean that the way it sounds, but I didn't need a miracle. I needed a check from my savings account where my irresponsible ass should have had one, because it was that simple and it was that easy. If I would have just saved 18 cents a mile, none of this drama happens. I just go, oh, here, let me write you a check. What Larry's taught me is that had I had that savings plan, I wouldn't have been running from crisis to crisis to crisis. My maintenance cost probably would have been closer to 14 cents a mile, which is what ours is. Well, 4 cents a mile for, let's see, I bought that truck with 680,000. It had $1 million, so 400. That's a bunch of money that I probably could have saved had I, because I would have done it more efficiently. So that's what went wrong. I made all kinds of money. I didn't save enough of it, and I spent too much of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right, man. And I think about that too. It's like all the years that we're taxed to pay for schooling. This is the type of shit they don't teach you in school.
100%. That's why my kids are homeschooled.
Same. Yeah, man. They want to keep us ignorant. They don't want us to know how to balance a checkbook. I'm fucking ignorant as shit when it comes to this. I'm retarded. My wife is luckily a lot smarter than me. she basically takes care of the finances. Um, yeah, man. They want to keep you stupid. Um,
Are you
yeah, you're
familiar
easy to manipulate.
Are you familiar with Bonhoeffer's theory on stupidity?
No,
Bruh.
tell me about it.
Okay, so let me get his.
And then I
first
want to
name.
ask you about Swift after this.
Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a German pastor who spoke out. He was an anti-Nazi, and he eventually was arrested, 1943, by the Gestapo. Was in prison, accused of being associated with a plot to assassinate Hitler, and then he was hanged on April 9th, 1945. But he wrote from prison. I'm looking for. There's a great little video about it. A little 5-minute video on YouTube.
If you find it, dude, we can watch it. Yeah, just screen share this shit.
Yeah, it's okay. So I got to do that. I got to do this. Okay.
In the meantime, when you said you survived 30 days of driving for Swift,
yeah,
what are the downsides for driving for a company like Swift?
Well, because they're so huge. Number one, it's institutionalized, right? No freedom, no liberty of thought. Now, when you show up at Swift as a 25-year driver, they look at you like you're some kind of unicorn. Like, why are you here again? Us 25-year drivers or 20-year drivers don't go driving for Swift, right? So I show up, and they're like looking at me, like, what? And I'm like, hey, I was an owner-operator. I failed. I needed money. Y'all got money, so here I am. So I take off. Well, now, fuck, this is the easiest shit I've ever done. It doesn't matter where I get fuel. It doesn't matter what I do. All I have to do is hold the steering wheel and shift gears.
Yeah.
And my plan was to be a trainer because their trainers make stupid money. And that was the only thing that I was going to be able to get back to like that $100,000 a year plus, or at least so I thought at the time, was to go to Swift and be a trainer. But you had to wait 6 months and all this stuff. So I'm like, I just got to survive 6 months. And so, an average truck driver can run 3,000, 3,500 miles a week. So I'm at like 2,600. Dude, I am so laid back. All I'm doing is driving trucks and listening to audiobooks. Easiest shit I've ever done. And they've got me on this little overnight 300-mile run over to like St. Louis. I'm like, sweet. I get a message. Said, hey, the computer says you can't, you don't have time to do this run, so we're going to take it off. I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, I can do that. No, computer says you can't. And I'm like, well, y'all, okay, listen. I know y'all are Swift and you got all these newbies and they don't know what the hell they're doing, but guys, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can do this. And they're like, yeah, sorry about that. Computer says you can't do it. Well, that just whacked my paycheck. I was all hired. I was all fired up. I'm like, hey, I'm going to get $1,500-$1,600 this week. I'm good. Knocks me down to like $1,000. And then they sold me on this special craft dedicated. And my uncle, on the way, he was a 40-year driver. On my way to truck driving school, he said, I got two pieces of advice for you. One, you can go down a hill 1,000 times too fast or too slow, but only once too fast. And it's not what you make per mile, it's what you make per week. Don't get distracted by rate per mile. I'm like, okay. So they tell me this craft dedicated thing's like 3,600 miles a week. It's all drop and hook freight. I'm like, hell yeah. Man, I can do that in my sleep. So this fleet manager calls me and he goes, I hear you're old school. I'm like, whatever that means, buddy. But yes, can I drive? Yes. All right, man. We do 3,600 miles a week. It's all drop and hook. It's all 48 states and Canada to reefer freight for craft. Rock and roll. Start next week. So I delivered this load and on like this Thursday or whatever, and I get my paycheck. And it says I was on like 48 or 49 cents a mile with my work experience. And they got me down to 32 cents. I'm like, what? I called the payroll guy. Hey, just looking over my paycheck here, and it says 32 cents. That's supposed to be 49 or 52 or 53, whatever it was. She goes, oh, but we've already coded you over to Craft Dedicated. It's 32 cents a mile. I said, not for this old boy. It's not. And she's like, no, that's what it pays. And I said, oh, so you sucker these dumb sons of bitches into taking this stuff for 32 cents a mile by promising them all these miles. Okay, let me get my bullshit eliminator 9,000 here. So 3,600 miles times 0.32 cents is $1,152 a week. I said, listen, y'all, thanks, but no thanks. This old boy ain't going to turn the key on for 32 cents a mile. Okay, that's just not happening. So Mr. Old School called me and cussed me out. And I said, hey, do what you want to do, but I'm not driving a truck for 32 cents a mile. It's not happening. You want to pay me my 53 or whatever? Okay, let's do the math. 3,600 times 0.53. That's 1,908 a week. Now we talking, right? So y'all can take your cheese and butter and shit from Kraft and straight up your ass because I'm out. So that's when I was like, okay, fuck this, I'm out. It's just they play games, and they play on the stupidity of people who would unfortunately probably be homeless if they didn't wander into a truck driving school one day and get a CDL.
Yeah,
because you're taking burger flippers that are making what at this time 2017, they're probably making $7.50 an hour, and they get some government grant to pay for their truck driving school, and they go to make 40 grand. Well, fuck, they're rich. I can make 45,000 because that's how they got me in 1997. I was making $4.75 an hour delivering Ford parts in Charleston, West Virginia. And I answered an ad in the newspaper, which was right after I threw the truck keys at the Ford parts manager and told him to fuck off. And they were like, well, with the mileage pay and stuff, you could make as much as $600 a week. I went, $600 a week? Holy shit. I'll be Bill Gates. What am I going to
Were
do with
they blowing
six?
smoke up my ass, dude? Because they're, and I think they probably were, but like I was talking to a recruiter, a nice dude, uh, good conversations, cool dude. He was telling me that I could be home every night, first of all, by doing this local run from like Portland to Vancouver. That's like one of the selling, you know.
I can't wait to hear this.
And then he was telling me that I was going to make starting 80,000 a year, and they were going to pay for my trucking school.
You
So
know how
all
many?
of that together, I was like, well, you guys are going to pay for me to get a CDL. You're going to take me to truck driving school. 80,000 to start, and I get home every night.
You know how many trucking recruiters it takes to screw in a light bulb?
Too
None.
many. I
They talk it into screwing itself.
Yeah.
No, that's bullshit. Okay.
Okay. See, I should have just called you before I even did any of this. I'm really glad I didn't get into that shit, man. I was a fucking a pube hair away from going to join with Swift.
Look, man, I'm a boy and I like trucks. I've liked little trucks. I've liked big trucks since I was a little boy, since Smokey and the Bandit. Um, I love trucks. My uncle was a truck driver, and man, he would roll up into that thing every once in a while, big Mack cab over, and I was just mesmerized. I like setting on 40 tons of engine and steel. I love the sound of it. I love the smell of it. I love how it feels. I love everything about it. I love to travel. I love everything about it. But and there's no other find me an industry, okay, in anywhere on this planet that I could take you, what you have no driving experience, right? And I could say, all right, Nate, here's what I want you to do. I want you to save up $5,000 or $6,000, and I want you to pay cash for your truck driving school because I don't want you to be anybody's bitch. I don't want you to get into some bullshit driver contract. I want you to be free. You write that check and pay for that truck driving school and get your CDL. Then I want you to call Swift, Schneider, JB Hunt, US Express, who doesn't matter. Don't matter. You need 1 year of verifiable over the road experience. I want you to go to one of those companies. I want you to get that verifiable over road. I want you to not fuck anything up. Don't hurt anybody. Don't kill anybody, and don't tear anything up for 1 year. Come to me, do my program for 18 months. And by the time you get done with my program, I can show you how to go pay cash for a truck, lease it on the Landstar, make $150,000 to $200,000 a year net after all your expenses are paid, net taxable income of $150,000 to $200,000. And if you'll really, really pay attention and you're really motivated, we could get you 3 or 4 or 5 trucks, and I can make you $500,000 a year and make you $1 million in 10 years. Show me another industry where that can happen. Ain't out there. The trucking industry, you can do that. I just had a video go viral on TikTok, and oh boy, the trolls are spooled up over it. But my best friend made $100,000 in crypto in 2020. He was paying attention. He didn't do anything crazy, but he had been watching crypto he and I both for about 5 years. And he just saw a couple of things. So first thing he did was took Uncle Trump's money and poured it into crypto, sold some stuff, poured it into crypto. And he turned like $8,000 into 100,000, right? So, crypto markets and all that shit go crazy 2020. And he was like, okay, I need to buy a truck. And I'm like, okay. And I said, 40 grand is about the number to get a truck, get it ready, get it reliable, efficient, everything. You need about 40 grand. He's like, I got 60. I'm like, okay, we're good. And he kept sending me these pretty trucks. Oh, look, this one's 40. And I'm like, yeah, but all the shit you got to do to it. Well, this one's 35. No. I said, I want you to go find the ugliest sumbitch you can find, and I want you to pay less than $7,500 for it. So he went hunting, and he comes up with this, and I mean ugly 2007 Freightliner, which, by the way, happened to be identical in every way to the truck that I had. So it was almost like reincarnation.
Man. Yeah.
He bought this truck for $5,500. Had 900 and like 980,000 miles on it. We didn't know jack shit about it. Didn't know if the motor had rebuilt. Didn't know anything. He took our mechanic buddy with him, and they said it wouldn't go into low range. You know, so a big truck transmission has two ranges. You got 5 gears on the bottom, 5 gears on the top. Well, it wouldn't go into low range. It was stuck in 6th through 10th. So Carl's crawling over it, and he's looking at it. Well, Carl starts monkeying with some wires on the transmission, and he heard a click. He looks at Zeke, and he goes, "Pay the man." Zeke's like, "What do you got?" He says, "Shh, pay the guy." Because what Carl thought was this was an electrical issue, and he thought they were going to drive the sumbitch out of there the day after they gave that guy the $5,500. Didn't turn out to be the case. But so tows it to Carl's house. We put it on jack stands, and we went through it, back to front, top to bottom, tires and brakes and shocks and bearings and springs and turbo and manifold and just all kinds of shit to it. Transmission. We ended up replacing the transmission. Zeke's got 40 grand in it. Okay. We put that truck in service July 11th of 2021. And from July 11th of 2021 to July of 2022, that truck earned $315,000. It paid the driver $90,000. It paid Zeke $55,000, of which he spent about $10,000 on maintenance after all the other. And we realized a profit of $48,000 for our management of that truck. So had there not been anybody else, and Zeke had just bought the truck, rehabbed it, drove it himself, he would have netted and walked away with $180,000 in a $5,500 ugly, faded ass red, broken fender, just frame, like the frame's twisted on it. I mean, you talk about an ugly son of a bitch. But from $5,500 to $180,000 profit in 1 year. But we're the lunatics. Remember that. We're the crazy ones. There's something wrong with us because we're not doing shit like everybody else and going to sign up for a fucking $2,000 a week truck payment. And now they're whining because the market's down. You know, after all the craziness of 2020 and 2021, 2022, hottest trucking market in history. And these dumb motherfuckers are going out and buying $250,000 trucks. Well, guess what's happening to them right now? Somebody's got to do something. I can't afford my truck payment. I could have told you that shit 2 years ago. That day was
like
coming.
A fucking house payment. That's like a mortgage, dude.
Oh,
$250,000.
$2,000 a week.
Good.
You know?
Fuck me, dude.
Yeah,
Fuck
it's insane, dude. I was in the Peterbilt dealer down here buying some parts for my buddy's 20-year-old 1.4 million mile truck, right? And there's a brand new. I mean, you talk about pretty. Oh my god, brand new Peterbilt, sitting in the showroom. I looked over. I said, "How much is that truck?" He said, $265,000. $265,000. Now, here's the kicker, and this is where the anarchism comes in and free market and Austrian economics and all that shit, okay? All the trucks in our fleet right now were manufactured between 1999 and 2007. Well, 2006, okay? Newest truck we have in the fleet's an 06. In 1999, I was at West Texas Peterbilt in Amarillo, and I could have bought a brand new 379 Peterbilt, which is, if you're thinking in your mind a Peterbilt, that's it. Long hood, big fenders, gorgeous. This one was purple. You know, every option. This one had the low back seats to have room for your cowboy hat. You know, didn't have the big tall seats in it because West Texas, you can't have a seat hitting the back of your cowboy hat, right? $95,000. Okay. Now, right now, if you had put that truck in service in 1999 and had operated it for 23 years, that truck's probably going to have 2 million miles on it, right? Guess what you can sell that 1999 2.2 million mile truck for in good shape? About 65. 2 million miles. because the new trucks built after 2010 are junk. They're junk. Roll off the fucking assembly line and break down. My truck, when they broke down, we just fix them. On the
So,
side of the
Chris,
road.
let's dig into that.
Okay.
Is there a psyop in that? Like, are they doing that on purpose? Why is it that
Well,
these brand new fucking trucks are dog shit?
I think it's a culmination of things. Number one, regulators like to regulate, right? So, rebel without a clue, give them a cause and they'll regulate it. Okay. So back during the Bush administration, we climate change, we got to fix the environment.
And that was a fucking Republican, man. Don't
Oh, I
forget
know.
it.
No,
Those
I loved
pieces
it.
of shit, they do the
And when
same thing.
in 2013, when we were losing everything and everything's falling around apart me, all the NPCs around me were like, "Yeah, Obama," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." This started with Bush silence because they couldn't question their guy, right? So you have you have the NPCs that like to regulate. Well, then you have the corporations. Okay, so this will probably blow you away. If you take Swift, Schneider, JB Hunt, US Express, Covenant, all these big companies that have 5,000, 10,000, 15, up to 30,000 trucks.
Are they all owned by the same corporation?
No. No.
Because you might want to look into that because I wouldn't be
No, they're
fucking
not.
surprised.
No, they're not. They're
All
families. Like Covenant and US Express were started by brothers, right? JB Hunt was started by JB Hunt.
Does the
Swift.
family still own it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
cool.
and some of them are public now, but wait for it. Here's the thing that blows everybody away. If you take all of those giant carriers and add up all of their trucks, they're 15% of the total trucks on the road. They're tiny. They have big branding. They have big money, with their 2% margin that they operate on. Their operating margin is 98%. They spend 98 cents of every dollar they make, right? But fuck, what's it matter, right? But they have massive, massive lobbying power. Who's their competition? Me. Okay.
Okay.
There's a million.
The vast majority are independent contractors.
Trucks, fleets of 6 trucks or less is the majority of the industry. 85% of the trucks on the road are operated by carriers with 6 trucks or less, and 1 million of them are single truck owner operators.
Man, that's so fucking cool.
Okay.
That's so fucking cool. It's still road pirates, man.
Now, so here's
not the cops, real pirates.
Here's the thing. My whole life, everybody's talked trash about Jimmy Carter, right? Oh, Jimmy Carter, dumb Jimmy Carter, Carter, Carter inflation, Carter. I'm like, no. Carter is probably the only decent human being that ever has happened to be president. He's probably the only one that I would pluck out of the mass murderer. Now he's complicit, but he's probably a decent human being. Okay. Jimmy Carter signed the most important piece of American legislation in the history of the United States of America, and it was called the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. And it deregulated the trucking industry. Prior to 1980, and if you want a great book on this, it's called The Box, read by Mark. The Box, written by Mark Levinson, and it's called The Shipping Container, or How the Shipping Container made the world smaller and the economy bigger, or something like that. Prior to 1980, there was a government agency called the ICC, Interstate Commerce Commission, and they set the rates. So if you were going to move a piece of freight from A to B, the ICC would say, okay, that pays $2.54 a mile. Okay. They set rates for railroad and they set rates for trucking. All right. Well, as overseas shipping, as Asia started to come out of the dark ages in the 60s and 70s, and we started having international shipping, dude, The ships would go all the way down around the bottom of South America and back up to get to the east coast of the United States because it was cheaper than hauling freight across the United States because it was so expensive. Okay. Then you had people that owned lanes, say Columbus to Chicago. Okay. Somebody owned that, right? Well, have you seen Smokey and the Bandit?
No.
Oh my God. Apostate. Okay, that's your homework. You have to go watch Smokey and the Bandit. The premise of Smokey and the Bandit is that Coors beer cannot be sold or trucked east of Texarkana, Texas. So this rich guy pays Bandit and Snowman $80,000 to go to Texarkana, pick up a load of Coors beer, bring it back to Atlanta, and they had to do it in 16 hours or 24 hours or whatever it was. And so that was eastbound and down, loaded up in trucking. We're going to do what they say can't be done. Got a long way to go and a short time to get there. Blah, 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 watch the old Bandit run. So Bandit in the Trans Am is running blocker for the truck. So they haul ass to Texarkana. They get the thing, and of course, they run from the law the whole time. That Hal Needham loosely based that movie on the trucking industry. Okay. Now, have you heard of CB lingo, CB radio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reason that we called them chicken houses and pickle parks and smoky bears and blah, blah, and all this crazy jargon was because the trucker, the outlaws who were hauling freight on the lanes they weren't permitted and allowed to haul on because they didn't own that route, they would run at night, and they had this secret this other language that they developed to talk to each other so the cops wouldn't know where they were.
It sounds like agorism to me.
100%.
Agorism on wheels. I like it.
Exactly. So you had all these outlaws. There's a great, it's on YouTube. I think it's called Trucking in 1979. Okay. And it's all this old footage. And there's this one guy down in North Carolina. North Carolina used to be a hotbed of furniture. All the furniture was made in North Carolina, right? So there's this guy, and he's playing with his 10-year-old, and he's like, well, I haven't had a load in 2 weeks, and I'm waiting on the phone to ring, because they didn't have email, right? So the phone rings, and he goes, oh, yep, I'll be over there to pick it up. So he's going to go get a load of furniture and take it to North Carolina to California. And they say this line so nonchalantly. Well, there goes Jim getting in his Kenworth. 48 hours from now, he'll be in California. And I went, hold on. That's 2,600 miles. And the interstates weren't done yet. How the fuck is Jim going to take that 79 Kenworth cab over and be in California in 48 hours? Well, on the CB, we called it high-speed chicken feed. And they'd stick that old big truck in the high hole and let her eat, right? And of course the rate was like $2,500 or something fucking insane, And then they went through and here's how much he's going to spend on fuel because they got 3 miles a gallon, So anyway,
when Jimmy Carter, is that cocaine or is that meth?
Back then it was probably speed, speed or coke or whatever.
Yeah.
So, Jimmy Carter signs the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 and deregulates the entire trucking industry. Okay. Had that piece of legislation not been signed, no Amazon, no FedEx, no UPS, you would, we were making a joke with one of my buddies the other day. It'd be like, you'd go on Amazon and it'd be like, okay, select shipping today and the United States Postal Service will have your package to you in 92 days, because that's what the fuck we'd be dealing with right now. Right. Because they'd be the only ones that were unregulated. They were the only ones that could go anywhere and everywhere. Everybody else was all segmented. Okay. Well, I had a direct customer here at Landstar for 7 years. Still have it. Another guy's doing it. Hauling house windows. They manufacture them here in West Virginia, and I would take them to New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Maryland every week. Well, that company could not exist in a regulated market, because who's going to put house windows on one truck to be unloaded to another truck to be unloaded to another truck to be unloaded to another truck to get them to New York? Not going to do it. They get destroyed and lost and stolen. So here's a company that would, unless they had their own trucks, which is, if you look back, Kroger had a fleet, Big Bear had a fleet, Sears had a fleet, JCPenney had a fleet. All of these companies had fleets to move their own product. Of course, then they would have to find backhauls, from the market, whatever, spot market, and they'd have to, or they'd have to come back empty. You talk about wasted money. Well, when you deregulate the market, now carriers can go in and say, hey, Kroger, sell your trucks. We'll haul your shit for you at a fraction of the cost of you having maintenance cost, employment cost, equipment cost, and all that shit. So then, poof, all the fleets are gone. All these companies, major carrier or corporations, didn't have to have their own fleets anymore. Now they could subcontract that out to people like us. And the owner operator, the greatest free market in history, was born in 1980. And so it's only because of that piece of legislation, in the existence of the state. Get rid of the states, not necessary. But in the existence of this empire, here's this little itty bitty thing, the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, that created this industry. Now, it's rife with corruption. It's rife with third-party logistics and brokers and all this shit. And blockchain is going to wipe all that out, because soon, I would say in the next 5 years, the whole broker model's gone. The whole third-party logistics gone, because shippers will be able to contract directly with trucks with no need for a middleman, because blockchain erases the intermediaries. I've been talking about this shit for 3 or 4 years, and everybody's like, oh, you're crazy, blah, 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 blah. If you think that the government is going to regulate something like blockchain, you don't understand blockchain. Okay? It's unregulatable. Crypto is unregulatable. All right? Period.
I'm very skeptical of crypto.
I'm not. I'm 100% all in. Now, okay, let's talk FTX. FTX was a Ponzi scheme dressed up to look like crypto. Now, whether or not it was just a funding campaign for the DNC, which it was, or it was also controlled opposition to tarnish the reputation of crypto and crash the crypto markets,
which it was. Yeah.
Right?
It's both of those things, yeah.
But if you read Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, which is very simple,
probably
not a difficult read. If you understand what blockchain is, you understand it. It is the end of the empire. It is the end of the nation state.
Jesus, you're optimistic about this.
Man. Now, okay, let me give you a perfect example. Now, people are like, oh, you're anti-government. No.
Yes.
We got government. All government is a set of rules. Okay? Well, we always say anarchy doesn't mean no rules. It means no rulers, right? I believe there will always be...
government is not a set of rules.
Huh?
To me, government is the gun in the room. Government is the...
Well, but hang on a minute. You're talking about just let me walk through this process, okay, and I think you'll see where I'm coming from. Okay? Because governing body, if you say it that way and use it as an adjective, all it means is, hey, we've set some rules up here that we agree to, right? NASCAR has a governing body. The NFL has a governing body, right? But we all agree to it, and we voluntarily enter it, and we voluntarily exit it, okay? I believe there will always be a town council, city council, probably county government. The state governments may survive, West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, Texas, New Mexico, whatever. But here's the perfect example. If you take the state's ability to manipulate currency away from it, okay, which it funds itself through the Federal Reserve, I think just about anybody can agree with that the Federal Reserve allows the state to create money out of thin air. And that was the case with the Romans. That was the case with the Ottomans. That was the case with the Germans. They inflate until it pops, and then poof, there's no more empire. Okay. Perfect example. When the pandemic starts in March of 2020, my hometown, Hurricane, West Virginia, has a mayor. Okay. And like all other narcissists that find their way into government power, he went full bore because people were ignoring the mandates. They were going to the park. Hey, school's out. We'll take the kids to the park. Well, they roped off the park, and he's on his Facebook page. This is a pandemic. This is an emergency. You just stay home, slaves. Well, he figured out real quick that was an unpopular position. So within 6 weeks, he's all quiet. And largely, other than restaurants being closed by force, everybody's pretty much going on about their business. But here's the great thing about the mayor of Hurricane, who has me blocked on Facebook. He can never become a tyrant. It's not possible. He has no army. He's got like 12 city police officers. If he ever decided to go invade Charleston, I know where he lives. I could just drag him out the front door of his house and whip his ass. I could get 12 people together, now having a force equal to his, and he's done. And probably half or more of his cops would desert him, right? If he truly wanted to become, Hitler, right? He doesn't have an unlimited bankroll like the state does. So my 100% fervent belief is that when, not if, we, people all over the globe, stop using fiat currency, it's over. It's over. We don't have to worry about who voted for who. We don't have to worry about this agency and that thing because they're broke. They have no money. They're done. It's over. I think the White House would make a beautiful bed and breakfast. We can have Washington, D.C. be this great monument to the final empire, that the world ever saw. Because never, ever before in human history, throughout all the empires, all the way back to biblical times and the Romans, have humans ever had the ability to exchange value with one another without an intermediary. And now we do. It's just a matter of getting us on that exit ramp, slowly making our way over there, and then all of a sudden we're gone. And they're looking around and going, but we're important and we have power. No, you don't. Shut up. You're done. You're done.
Okay. I like that vision that you have.
Embrace it. It's coming.
It would be nice, man. I don't think it's coming. I think that here's the thing. I think that Satoshi, what the hell is his last name?
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Nakamoto. There you go.
Probably doesn't exist.
And or was a Fed. And what I honestly think is he built Bitcoin trying to get people used to digital money. I think that the blockchain is a fantastic idea, but in the same way that it can be freedom, it can also be handcuffs.
Then you don't understand blockchain.
Okay, maybe.
It's
the same way it's like it's a tool that can be used against us. So the same way that like debt can never be erased now, they can use that blockchain technology to keep things and keep. Anyways, people want? Go ahead.
Have you ever been in an arcade and played whack-a-mole?
Yes.
Okay. That's what it would be like trying to regulate. Now listen, you've got to understand. You've got to take a lot of the stuff you're seeing right now on the bleeding edge and kind of push it over. Because now I'm not what they would call a Bitcoin maximalist by their definition. Okay. But the one thing that Bitcoin has is it's finite. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, which is divided down into Satoshis. I think it's 7 zeros, right? There will only ever be 21 million. When it gets to, the code is set. When it gets to 21 million, no more Bitcoin. You have a finite, limited supply. You have scarcity built in. Okay. I think that Satoshi was probably a group of people It was a handful of people. I mean, some people thought it was corporations like Motorola, and Nokia, and that they broke up Satoshi Nakamoto, Look, I don't care. All right. If you understand that blockchain is a immutable, decentralized ledger, okay? You can't have blockchain without crypto. You can't have crypto without blockchain. Okay. But if you understand the basic fundamentals of blockchain, there are chains that could be used for bad, but all I have to do is get on a different chain, right? So let's say, for example, the government comes out, FTX, or what was that other bullshit coin everybody was talking about? I can't think of it right now. Okay, we're regulating that coin. Okay, let me get rid of that coin and I'll just go get this coin. All right. Then you have privacy coins. You have real coins that have total
Chris, do you
anonymity.
believe that privacy coins exist?
Yes.
I don't think that you can use the internet privately. I
Yet.
don't believe that
Keyword.
any
Yet. All right.
like
Let me give you another piece.
I can have any type of because even like any of those things that like supposedly encrypt your phone, none of that shit is real, dude. They don't let you have encryption.
Yet.
There is no end-to-end encryption.
Yet. I'm looking for a name.
Literally, these fucks are monitoring every single transaction we make. And you can't really have something that's on a blockchain and it be anonymous because a blockchain is a ledger. Right. So there's, I don't know, man.
Okay, so I'm looking for this guy's name, but I can't find it. Anyway, there was a great interview with a guy that was one of the major developers with Voice over Internet Protocol. All right, you know what that is, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the ability to do talk on the internet, right? And there was this fantastic interview where he said that when VoIP was developed, which is basically Skype, people were like, okay, but I have telephone lines. Like, what do I need voice over internet protocol? Well, it used to be, there was a time, I remember it, dial up. There was a time that the internet ran on the phone lines. Well, guess what happens now? The phone lines run on the internet. It flipped. Okay. So if you look at things that are being developed, especially more so since 2020, like you've got to look, you got to zoom out, and there's everything before March 2020, and then there's after 2020. Like that's the new star date 0.0 is March of 2020, because that's what shook everybody the fuck up. And everybody before then that had some cool ideas, like, man, it'd be really cool if we did this, that, or the other. And then March of 2020 happens and they went, oh, okay, so I got this idea and I have to develop it now. Okay, well, it's going to take a few years. But there's coming a time when the internet will run on blockchain. Okay? Internet service providers, I think, will be a thing of the past. I believe with some of the technologies coming around, and I'm not talking about what's Elon's thing, Starlink. I believe that the internet will run on the bands that used to carry our local television stations in that frequency range. That the internet will be everywhere, and this computer, my Mac, will be a node, and my phone will be a node, and my iPad will be a node, and your phone and all your devices will be nodes because they'll be connected, and there will be no ISPs, and there can be no tracking. Okay, so yes, as it stands today, with the capture of the infrastructure of the state and corporations, yeah, right now that would be very difficult. But I'm telling you, write it down. Within 5 to 10 years, there will be a flip, and the internet will run on blockchain, not the other way around. And then it's going to be a game of, well, where did you get that money? That's where I got it. Fuck you. Prove it.
I like it, man. I hope that you're right, Chris. I will stay skeptical, but I will be pleasantly surprised if that happens. I just feel that they are getting us ready for the switch over to the CBDCs, so the central bank digital currencies. And I think that the majority, 98.999% of folks, are just going to be like, oh, this is my money now.
All
And
right,
I
let's
think
do
that there'll
this.
be incentives. There'll be incentives. They'll give you like 5% more if you switch your dollars over, because they're going to give you the carrot first before they give you the stick.
All right, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this video. It's 5 minutes,
Sure.
and I think that will be your rebuttal.
Okay, I like it.
Now,
I'm
is
adding
it
it to the
playing?
stream right
During a
now. Here we
time
go.
when incited
Is it
mobs
playing
threw
the audio?
stones into the windows of innocent shop owners and women and children were cruelly
I might have.
humiliated
I
in the
might have to
open,
hit. Hang on a
did
minute. Let me stop sharing because I think I have to hit another button to get it to play the audio.
I could hear it.
Oh, you could. Okay,
Yeah, I
sorry
could hear
about
it just
that.
fine.
Share tab audio. All right, sorry. All right,
No
all right.
worries. And I'm adding
And
it to stream now.
of German history. During a time when incited in the
okay,
darkest
started it. Now
chapter
can
of
you hear me?
German history, during a time when incited mobs threw stones into the windows of innocent shop owners and women and children were cruelly humiliated in the open, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a young pastor, began to speak publicly against the atrocities that the regime had produced. After years of trying to change people's minds, Dietrich Bonhoeffer came home one evening and his own father had to tell him that two men were waiting in his room to take him away. In prison, Bonhoeffer began to reflect on how his country of poets and thinkers had turned into a collective of cowards, crooks, and criminals. Eventually, he concluded that the root of the problem was not malice, but stupidity. In his famous Letters from Prison, Bonhoeffer argued that stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice, because while one may protest against evil, it can be exposed and prevented by the use of force. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears. Facts that contradict a stupid person's prejudgment simply need not be believed, and when they are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential, as incidental. In all this, the stupid person is self-satisfied and, being easily irritated, becomes dangerous by going on the attack. For that reason, greater caution is called for when dealing with a stupid person than with a malicious one. If we want to know how to get the better of stupidity, we must seek to understand its nature. This much is certain. Stupidity is, in essence, not an intellectual defect, but a moral one. There are human beings who are remarkably agile intellectually, yet stupid, and others who are intellectually dull, yet anything but stupid. The impression one gains is not so much that stupidity is a congenital defect, but that under certain circumstances, people are made stupid, or rather, they allow this to happen to them. People who live in solitude manifest this defect less frequently than individuals in groups, and so it would seem that stupidity is perhaps less a psychological than a sociological problem. It becomes apparent that every strong upsurge of power, be it of a political or religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity, almost as if this is a sociological psychological law, where the power of the one needs the stupidity of the other. The process at work here is not that particular human capacities, such as intellect, suddenly fail. Instead, it seems that under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and, more or less consciously, give up an autonomous position. The fact that the stupid person is often stubborn must not blind us from the fact that he is not independent. In conversation with him, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with him as a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. He is under a spell, blinded, misused, and is abused in his very being. Having thus become a mindless tool, the stupid person will also be capable of any evil, incapable of seeing that it is evil. Only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity. Here, we must come to terms with the fact that in most cases, a genuine internal liberation becomes possible only when external liberation has preceded it. Until then, we must abandon all attempts to convince the stupid person. Bonhoeffer died due to his involvement in a plot against Adolf Hitler at dawn on the 9th of April 1945 at Flossenburg concentration camp, just 2 weeks before soldiers from the United States liberated the camp. Action springs not from thought, but from a readiness for responsibility. The ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world that it leaves to its children, Bonhoeffer once said. Check the description below to read Bonhoeffer's original text, After 10 Years. For more information about
Okay. So only liberation. All right. And my exposure to humanity over the last 4 years, especially trying to teach people, trying to be a teacher. Dude, there's an incredible number of stupid fucking people walking around. Okay? Like part of our podcast is I put this up all the time. This is the BSE 9000 special edition. This is a bullshit eliminator 9000. Because I have people that don't know how to use this. Straight up. Like, I'm trying to do trip plans and I'm trying to teach them and show them how to, put their loads together. Can't do math. Can't do third grade math. Okay? Incapable. Incapable of reading an email, comprehending what that email says. Pick up here at this time, deliver there at that time. Here's the pickup number. Hey, man, I can't find the pickup number. So I'll take a screenshot, circle it, and send it back to him. It's right there, right? And, dude, I've had old, young, gay, straight, black, white, urban, rural, foreign-born, native-born. I've had them all. I've had every demographic except trans, so thus far. The stupidity of Americans in general, and I think it's so much more American. They're everywhere, obviously. Dude, there's this great woman on TikTok. Oh my God, she's beautiful. This unbelievably beautiful African woman. Okay. Comedian. So she's live streaming when she got her phone. She's talking she's doing TikTok. And she gets questions. How do you have internet in Africa? And she's like, every night when the thunder comes, we dig up the ground. And when the God thunder come, we dig up the ground and the phone is in. This is where we get the internet. And we climb to the top of the tall tree. And when we get to the top of the tree, that's where we find the internet. Like, stupid fucking people that watch too much television don't understand that a woman in Africa can have high-speed internet. Okay? Here's the beauty. I believe all the stuff that we've talked about, blockchain and crypto and blah, 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 doesn't happen here first. Happens there first. Happens in the Middle East first. Happens in Brazil and Venezuela first. What the fuck else have they got to do? Right? We're spoiled, fat, rich, and happy. Okay? But what do they have to lose? They're already developing completely digital, decentralized economies where that lady's at. I don't know where the fuck she's at. Africa's a big place, by the way. Right? this giant landmass that's pretty much untapped, you know? So I think them, the Middle East, the third world, they're the first ones. And I think that's what Elon's banking on too, with the Starlink or whatever it's called.
I have my questions about Starlink too, but I think you're absolutely right, man, and I think you're onto something because they don't have they don't have quite the same regulations that we have. They don't have quite the same government that we have.
They don't have the infrastructure.
Like you said that. Well, like you said, what the fuck is your mayor going to do? Is he going to have like raise up his 12 cops and he's going to go take over, something? I mean,
Right.
That's the same thing with their government there. Their government there has a certain amount of power, but it's limited. They have a certain amount of manpower, but it's limited. They have a certain amount of money, but it's limited. And
One more thing.
They can fuck some shit up, but they can't fuck everything up.
What government they do have? Oh, wait a minute. I got to tell you this story. How many times have you been told as an anarchist to move to Somalia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plenty. I mean, actually, the other week.
Okay.
Like, probably a week ago.
You're going to fucking love this. Swift orientation. April of 2017. I'm sitting in a room of 30, 40 drivers. And there's this very well-dressed young black man, probably 25, beside me. And we're chatting and chatting back and forth. And I'm like, so, hey, man, where are you from? And you can tell how much they hate that question because they think Americans are going to judge them, right? And I'm like, no. I was like,
or not know what the fuck any country in Africa is. A lot of people think Africa is a country.
Right. I'm like, no judgment. I'm curious where you're from. And he said, I'm from Somalia. I said, Somalia?
Oh, so you're a pirate?
I said, you're Somalia. And he's looking at me kind of weird because I'm so happy that I've met this Somali. And I said, look, without getting in a very, very deep conversation, I'm an anarchist, okay? And all that means is that I don't like and I don't trust and I don't value the U.S. government or any government. That's all that means, okay? The reason why I'm so interested to meet someone from Somalia is because all the bootlickers, if I say anything negative about government, they tell me, why don't you move to Somalia because there's no government? And he's like this really puzzled. He says, they think there is no government in Somalia? And I'm like, yeah. And he reaches in his wallet and he pulls out his card. Looks like a driver's license. And it's his U.S. citizenship card. Looks just like a driver's license, right? Got his picture and his name and all this shit. And he goes, this is my citizenship card, and has my name, Matamba Wamba Wamba Wamba, whatever. And I'm like, okay. He goes, the president of Somalia, he has one of these too. I said, hold the fuck on. I said, dude, are you telling me that the president of Somalia is a U.S. citizen? He goes, oh, yes, they are all U.S. citizens. So I instantly go to Wikipedia, and I'll be damned if that motherfucker ain't a U.S. citizen. No government, my ass, right? But think about it. Of all the warlords all over the globe, what happens to them when the gravy train stops? Like old Zelensky. What the fuck's Zelensky going to do without I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars they've supposedly sent over there. What's he going to do without all those billions and billions of dollars? Nothing. He's going to be a loudmouth on the internet. He's going to be fucking Antifa, or that crazy bitch that run, Black Lives Matter with the $8 million house. Meaningless, powerless, useless. Why? Because of fiat currency and the Federal Reserve. The minute that all goes away, every one of these motherfuckers is out of business. Every single one of them. It's over.
Okay. So I love it. and that's great. I just want to say this as far as like what is money? Money is something that we all agree has a value,
Means of
right? And
exchange.
so it's a means of exchange, but exactly what you just said, this fiat, it is what collectively, whatever you want to call a collective, um, has agreed has value. So I don't think that it's going to go worthless, unfortunately, because there's enough assholes that want to lick America's asshole. I think that the central banks from all over the fucking world aren't going to let it go down to zero. And people are just going to, unfortunately, like all of those stupid people, like we just watched in the video, are going to gravitate towards whatever they tell them. Like, oh, I can use this to buy Pornhub. Oh, perfect. I can buy Krispy Kreme donuts and rainbow dildos with this. Okay, perfect. I don't
Um,
know what. What are your thoughts on that?
so I'm gonna show you this.
Okay,
Share screen. Chrome tab to do. I hate the name of it. Um, because it sounds cheesy. Uh, Hidden Secrets of
I
Money.
can't hear it right now.
I've got it muted.
FYI. Okay.
I've got it muted. I just wanted you to see it.
Okay.
It's called Mike Maloney, and it's called The Hidden Secrets of Money, and it's a series. And
You should send me all the links to these videos, and we'll include them in the show notes.
The title is cringy and creepy and sounds clickbaity. Somewhere along the line, somebody recommended.
He looks like he fucks kids. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is fantastic.
It's fascinating,
fantastic.
man, because okay, the same argument that I was going to use for crypto can be attributed to funny money or whatever you want to fucking call this, the money that we have now. I was going to say, because cryptocurrency, if I can't fucking pick it up, if I can't fucking hold it, like, what can I do with it? Like, to me, this as soon as like a fucking EMF comes, because I think that we are due for a giant, I don't know, a big fucking pulse from the sun. Something's going to come and fuck up our internet, whether or not that's real or it's a fucking false flag psyop and they try to send us back to the Stone Age while they still have all their shit. I can't eat a fucking Bitcoin. What I can do is I can put all of that fucking money that I would have put into cryptocurrency. I can buy ammo, I can buy tobacco, I can buy alcohol, and I can buy dry goods. And when shit hits the fan, I can bar, trader, and eat.
I would argue that the shit officially hit the fan on March 16th, 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but we haven't felt the full effect of it yet. Yes, but I agree with you.
I think we have, and here's why.
Well, if we have them, we're doing all right. I think
here's why I think
due for a genuine good butt fucking without any spit, without any lube.
Okay. So think about my experience. All right. March of 2020. Well, go February. They start talking about it. Coronavirus. Kobe Bryant died in January, right? Late January. Front page of USA Today, which you can't buy.
Sacrificed by the Illuminati.
Right. You cannot buy that edition of USA Today, or at least you couldn't the last time I tried. On the front page is a picture of Kobe, right? Everybody's very sad. Kobe and his daughter died in a helicopter crash. And over on the side is an article about our good friend, Anthony Fauci, talking about the coronavirus. And in that article, he says, not a big deal, not a problem. We have everything we need to handle this. No one needs to worry. All right. It ramps up. Now, remember, I've been through Zika. I've been through Ebola. I've been through MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. You know, we've been through this before.
Swine flu, bird flu.
Yeah. Yep. But they keep ramping. Larry and I were talking about it, you know, because we're running a fleet. And then they start talking about, you know, we're going to shut down the Sweet Six or the March Madness. I'm like, the fuck you are. You ain't going to shut down March Madness. You ain't going to shut down a NASCAR race. There will be hillbillies running from every corner. There will be the greatest convergence. There will be guys from the hood in lowriders hooked up with jacked up 79 Chevrolets, and they're all going to be marching toward Washington side by side with the lowriders and the jacked up Chevys, and they will burn that motherfucker to the ground if y'all shut down NASCAR and March Madness. I said that. I think I said that on our podcast. Okay.
You're proving my point, man.
Oh, wait,
it didn't happen.
I ain't done.
Right,
I ain't anywhere near done. Okay. So they shut down NASCAR and they shut down the NBA and they shut down March Madness, and the American freedom lovers folded like a cheap card table.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, wow.
Because they were busy trusting the plan.
Right. And I went, holy shit. Like they're really doing this. Okay. Now, honestly, I went, okay, well, damn, maybe it is that bad. Maybe. Okay. Now, granted, I'm out on the road. I have lived my life in public toilets and public showers. Okay. At this point in my 46 years, I've taken more showers in a truck stop than I have in a house. Okay. My wife and I talk about it. And she's like, well, you know, they're usually full of shit about everything, but, you know, just maybe be careful. Don't bring anything home. I'm like, okay. And so I'm opening doors with my elbows and I'm washing my hands extra. And about a week and a half goes by and I went, nope, no fucking way. Right. There was something in me that said, nope, not doing it. And then at that point, from that point on, I didn't do anything different. All right. So what we saw with the shutdown of March Madness and what we saw with NASCAR is we saw where there was centralized authority that could be, especially tied to corporate money, could be affected and shut down. Okay. So I'm going to Pennsylvania and New York every week, right? Same customers all the time. And so the governor of Pennsylvania handed down his decree from up on high that all businesses, all non-essential businesses were to shut down. And they had this list, and I downloaded it, and I went, yep, there's my customers that I delivered the house windows to, and they would go take them to the contractors and install them. So I called ABC Supply in York, Pennsylvania. It was the ones I had the closest relationship with. The guy answered for me. I said, hey, man, it's Chris. He's like, yeah, what's up? I said, so the governor's been talking, and he goes, yeah, we're shutting down. And I said, okay. So I called the plant, makes windows. I said, Chuck, ABC said they're all shutting down. He said, okay. I mean, what else are we going to do? So I jump on the board and I booked a load of medicine bottles from Ohio to Houston. And I just told everybody, I'm like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. So I'll look for this medical freight because we got all these exemptions and we didn't have to run our service, all this bullshit. I'm like, fuck it. I was hauling COVID freight, So I hook up this load, and on Friday morning, the next morning, I get a phone call from ABC Supply in York, PA. He said, hey, man, lawyers got involved. We told the governor to fuck off or staying open. I said, really? He said, yep. Every ABC store in the country is staying open. None of them will honor the governor's order. Okay. So I start calling J.H. Myers and Window World and all these other people. And they're like, yep, nope, we're staying open. Okay. So I called the plant back. Chuck, they just all called, said they're staying open. He said, if they're open, we're shipping. If they're buying, we're shipping. I said, okay, well, I've already booked this other load. So, I'll be back next week. And he was like, okay, great. So I go to Houston. I booked a load out of Dallas. So I deliver, I think, Monday morning. I'll bounce up to Dallas to pick up a load Tuesday. And I go to the truck stop. And they've got all indoor dining is shut down. Then there's a Burger King inside this truck stop. And I thought, well, I'm going to go take a shower. Get me some Burger King. So I go inside. All the chairs are roped off, and they've got the order stamped to the wall from the mayor of Dallas, and I picked it up and I read through it. No, they shall not do this and won't do that and blah, 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 blah. And nobody's talking about masks at all at this point. And but there's nowhere to sit. And I thought, and then I went, you know what? I'm a motherfucking genius. So I pull my phone out of my pocket, open the truck stop app, and I order a shower. I thought, I'll just go eat my breakfast in the shower, and I'll be able to sit down and I'll eat my shower and my breakfast in the shower. Well, it was a 45-minute wait for a shower. I'm like, well, fuck that. So I went and sat my fat ass down in the hallway in the floor of this truck stop and ate my breakfast. And people walked past me, didn't think anything of it. I'm just sitting in the floor. I took a selfie. I've got it on my Facebook somewhere. Me taking a selfie, eating this fucking burrito sitting on the floor. Nobody said a word. Now, if I'd have set my fat ass in one of them chairs, they'd have called the cops. Right?
Yep.
And it was raining outside because they had the slave table outside, a picnic table you could sit out outside. But some of the places I went to, they even shut the shit down outside. You couldn't even sit outside and eat, right? Well, 1st of April, something comes. And Cuomo was the first one to issue a mask mandate. And I decided day one, I am not fucking doing it. Period. I'm not wearing a mask anywhere, anytime. It's not happening. So the first round that I went to Pennsylvania, nobody would talk to me. They wouldn't sign my paperwork. They'd say, put shit over there, and we're not signing the paperwork. Everybody's got a mask on. One dude at a J.H. Myers in this little tiny town in Pennsylvania, dude, he had a painter's, that painter's plastic or paper coveralls for a painter. Mm-hmm. He had that shit on. He had rubber gloves duct taped to his arms. He had on a mask, goggles, and a face shield. And he yelled at me from across the parking lot, "Put the windows by the door." Okay, I got the fucking windows out there, set them up by the door. And I wrote, "Masked man refused to sign my paperwork," and fucking scanned it. From that point forward, I never wore a mask anywhere in New York, anywhere in Pennsylvania, anywhere in Maryland, and continued to be in 33 states throughout Operation Enduring Clusterfuck. And the only time, there were 2 times that I had a fake mask that I bought off of Facebook. And God bless those guys. They're bootlickers, but God damn, they're persistent. Fake Mask USA. Their website has been taken off of every server in the United States. All their social medias have been taken down over and over and over again. But I bought this fake mask. And I keep it in my back pocket just in case I would get in that situation where I had to have it. And I stopped at a Dunkin' Donuts in Ohio. And I walked up. And the little 19-year-old NPC, she says, "Sir, do you have a mask?" I said, "Nope." She said, "Well, I can't serve you." And I said, "But I do have a fake mask." And I made a big show of pulling it out of my pocket. And, dude, my whiskers would poke through it, And she's like, "How can I help you?" I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, I'm going to tell you it's fake. You can see that it's fake. It's not real. It's not going to do anything. But because I have this fake piece of cloth on my face, you're going to serve me." Yep. So I went through 33 states during Operation Enduring Clusterfuck. And with the exception of a few pinch points, grocery stores, gas stations, certain shippers and receivers, very, very few. Went to a Walmart one time, Walmart, D.C. And I'm thinking if anybody's going to be number one Nazi, it's going to be Walmart, right? I go in this Walmart, D.C., pull up to the gate, didn't have a mask, they didn't say a word. And I roll in and I go into the little office to check in, and there's like 6 drivers. Everybody's got on a mask but me. And there's this Russian dude in front of me. And he looks back at me and he looks forward. He looks back at me, he looks forward. And then he takes his thumb or his finger and he taps on the sign on the window. Said all drivers must wear masks. He taps on it. And he goes, "You not give shit?" And I said, and I didn't say anything. I just shook my head. He says, "Signs say wear a mask, you must wear a mask." And I shook my head again. And other drivers are giggling. I walked up to the window, slid my paperwork under the thing, put the stamp, here you go. Never said a fucking word. Right? It showed me that disobedience and non-compliance is the only thing that works ever.
Yeah.
Because I marched all over this fucking country with no mask, no, I didn't do shit. I didn't get a vaccine. I didn't do any of that shit. But only where there was centralized control was there a problem. And where does centralized control come from? Intermediaries. And what does blockchain get rid of? Neutralize intermediaries. So I don't blame everybody for the first, say, 30 days, 60 days, because listen, there's something wrong with us, right? Like the anarchists, like there's something where our wiring is different, and we just process shit in a different way than they do. But I've watched people. I had friends when the Anarchist was on HBO that somebody loved and I liked it. And so I put it up on my Facebook, the first episode. And dude, the most straight-laced white woman you've ever met that I went to high school with sends me a private message. Her husband's a chiropractor. And she goes, I think we're anarchists. And I said, good. Welcome. So circling back around, because we're almost 2 hours. This Bonhoeffer stupidity thing finally helped me realize that, number one, I got to do it one person at a time. I've got to do it through a relationship. I'm not going to do it screaming at people on Twitter. I'm not going to do it screaming at people on Facebook comment sections. One person at a time, I'm going to have a conversation with, and I'm going to do my best to liberate that one person. And hopefully that person will liberate another person who will liberate another person, because that's all I can do. I'm free. Okay. I'm free, and every penny of my value, or however you define value, is based on what I do for other people. It's all service based. What I do for other people defines my value. What I do for others defines my value, and it creates my value. So no, I'm not I'm not worried in the least. Am I going to have to wade through some bullshittery and some fuckery over the next 2 to 5 years? Absolutely. They're going to come up with, they're going to scare, and they're going to terrorize, and I'm just going to keep going. Yawn. Next. And I'm going to display that and say, I'm not buying into the fear. Now, if you want to be terrified, go over there and be terrified. But if you don't want to be terrified, come over here and we'll hang out. We'll be friends, and we'll be not terrified together. And the final thing, when you were a kid, did you ever watch DuckTales?
Yes.
Okay. You see that?
Yeah, I think we could see that. Yeah.
Okay. It's a bottle cap.
Mm-hmm.
Watch find the DuckTales episode, Dangerous Currency. Okay. Now, I don't remember all the characters' names, but the dude that flew the airplane, somehow somebody ends up on a remote island, and he has a bottle cap, and the natives have never seen one before, and they go crazy over it. And he's like, well, hell, we got bottle caps everywhere. So he starts bringing them in on the airplane, and they start trading them because they decide that these bottle caps are valuable. Well, old Scrooge tried to tell him. He said, ho, don't just go over there just dumping bottle caps everywhere, because you're going to devalue that currency. You got to have scarcity. They didn't listen. And so they're just dumping just airplane loads and airplane loads of these bottle caps, and it's raining money from the sky until it became worthless. Greatest economics lesson I've ever seen, and it was on DuckTales. Dangerous Currency. And it was bottle caps. So again, how did they decide that the bottle cap was so valuable? It was something they'd never seen before. It was scarce. That's why the Mike Maloney thing is so good, because it goes through the history of money and currency. What's money? What's currency? There's a difference. What's a store of value? What's a means of exchange? Right? And goes through the Romans and how they created money, and then how they devalued money because they needed more money for war, because the empire had to expand, And when the state controls money, it's going to inflate it and it's going to make it rain from the sky. You know, Greaseball, California, just announced everybody's going to get $1,000. Okay, yeah, give it 8 months.
Only if you're trans, though, right? Is that they're giving like $1,200 to anybody that's trans, and
yeah, this was like $1,000 for everybody.
Okay.
Everybody.
This is in California,
fucking like Oprah.
Yeah,
you get 1,000 and you get 1,000.
Yeah, just watch. All of a sudden, holy shit! Rent for everyone is going up $1,000.
As if it ain't already $10,000 a month.
It's pretty wild, man. That's where I'm from. Yeah, so I'll meet you where you're at, man. And I think the only answer, honestly, is peaceful civil disobedience. I fucking rail on that all the time, man. Because how the fuck did Gandhi get the giant empire out of fucking India? And I mean, there's a little bit to that. There's a little psyop in there too, but it was peaceful civil disobedience. And that's how he got the most powerful empire in the world out of fucking India. And honestly, like you said, it starts with one person at a time, and it starts with us living that life. And it starts with us being an example. As far as like, well, I got a buddy because, dude, Oregon during the midterms just passed some crazy fucking gun laws, dude. Yeah. Like absolutely fucking nuts. I haven't read them myself, but it's something like if you have a fucking magazine that's over 8 rounds, you can have that on your property, and that's it. And if you go to a fucking gun range with like a magazine that holds 16 rounds, you can go to prison. It's something ridiculous, dude. And my buddy's just losing his mind over it. And I'm just like, well, I have this thing where I just do whatever I want.
Right.
I don't ask permission. I didn't look at the fucking gun law before. I don't know if I'm in compliance right now. And whatever this new one is, I know I won't be in compliance with. And I just do whatever the fuck I want because that's what I do. This is called like a license to live. I'm like, the government has no authority over me. I don't ask permission and I just do what I want. Like in my old house for my son, there's all these crazy fucking regulations. You know what I did? I built a gigantic fucking treehouse with a big old fucking like a swing and a fucking in a slide. I didn't ask any permission. I was in city limits and we had chickens and eat my ass and suck my dick.
Right.
So they can pass any law they want. Okay. And that's how you're going to win. It's just little by little and get to know your fucking neighbors. Yep. Know the ones that are cool. Get to know your local farmers. I mean, it's just agorism for the win. So, I mean, I'm an agorist, but I think I'm just an old school agorist where I don't put any faith in crypto as far as because anything that has to do with the internet, I don't hold my breath. And I think that it's all a fucking psyop. I think they gave us the fucking internet. I mean, it was created with DARPA money. The government made the fucking internet. And did it get away from them for a while? I think so. I think they're consolidating it. And can we make it our own? I fucking hope so, dude. Maybe I'm just not tech savvy enough to like be hopeful. I don't know.
Well, it's less about savvy, I think, as it is. I mean, without the internet, where are you at? Portland? Or you're in Oregon?
I'm in Oregon. I'm north of Portland. I'm northwest of Portland. So I'm about 40 minutes out of the city. So I don't have to deal with fucking commies and Antifa.
Right.
All these guys are good old boys. They're all like fucking Trump, like flag humpers, which is a different type of stupid. But like, you know what? I'll take that kind of stupid any fucking day over some asshole that's going to try to tell me to wear a mask and like tell my kid that he has a pussy instead of a dick.
So here's what I think you need to think about, just kind of a 9,000 foot view. From 1997 until about 2007 or 8, so 30 years. 97 to 07. That's 10 years. Okay. For 10 years, I was an anomaly. I'd been to Oregon. I had driven from Portland out to the coast, right? I'd been in all 48 states. Most average people could not even consider having a friend or acquaintance or relationship with someone from another state that had not originated here. Oh, yeah, I got a friend that lives in Texas, but he grew up here, or my friend was an Army brat, or you know what I mean? The relationship had to begin here, and then that person moved, and they went to California, they went to Oregon, or they went to Texas. Well, I had relationships and acquaintances with people all over the country, and that was just bizarre. Well, now I have weekly or monthly Zoom meetings with the Bad Romans, and there's a girl in there from Australia. I couldn't have ever dreamt of having, and I would call Talia a friend. Now, may we ever be in physical proximity of one another? Unlikely. But we share common goals and interests and philosophy. I have friends in Mexico. I have friends in Colombia. I have friends all over the United States, people that I call real friends, and without the internet, that's not even possible. So even if there had been dark meat, that genie is so far out of the bottle now. It's so, and I love TikTok. I love TikTok.
I'm just going to throw a little shade on that real fast. How do you know any of our friends aren't feds? I keep an eye on them.
The beauty of TikTok has the best algorithm out there. Okay. It is fantastic because if you sign up for TikTok and I guess I was 45. If you put 45 in male and you open TikTok for the first time, it's nothing but titties. Okay. That's it. You get boobs and cars. Okay. Well, the algorithm has learned now that I want to hear from people that like liberty. I want to hear from people I want to hear from the gay people that aren't part of the LGBT, LMNOP. I want to hear from black people that aren't part of the fascists. I want to hear because I love those conversations, and they're happening right now on TikTok. So if you want to know why Trump wanted to shut down TikTok, it ain't got nothing to do with the CCP. It's got to do with the fact that people are having conversations on TikTok, and they're saying some shit that don't get said anywhere else. And the algorithm just feeds it. There's some like that girl in Africa. The TikTok creators are fantastic. So, think about this. No, if you'll accept the premise that real blockchain, that I don't even think we've fully achieved yet. Okay. But real blockchain is an immutable, decentralized ledger that will allow for content to be created and never touched by anyone except the creator. What happens when the first, and there are blockchain based, like Rumble and what's the other, Odyssey. Those are blockchain based social media video platforms. You can't, there's nobody that possesses the button to take something off of Odyssey or Rumble. It doesn't exist. Okay. Well, right now you got YouTubers, you got Mr. Beast and Cletus McFarland and Matt Carricker and all these guys are building these massive audiences. Massive. I mean, my God, Cletus McFarland is a juggernaut on YouTube. Everything that dude touches turns to gold. And he's at like 3 million subs. What happens when Cletus takes his unbelievably rabid, loyal I made the joke the other day. He's got 2 golden retrievers. And I swear to God, he could take Holly's poops and put them in a box and put them on the website. And these motherfuckers would buy him out in an hour. Right? They're unbelievably loyal to him. What happens when Cletus and Mr. Beast and all these guys just say, you know what, YouTube, we're done with your bullshit. We're going to go over here. Vanish. And it's going to be, oh man, do you remember there used to be a thing called YouTube and it was so cool, you know, but it doesn't exist anymore because it was replaced by better technology because it stopped serving its audience and started serving the state.
Man, I tell you what, you're onto something, and I wish that some of these folks would just say, you know what? I'm only going to stream on my website now. Someone like Mr. Beast, if he said, you have to go to MrBeast.com and you can watch my videos for free, they're only going to be there from now on. Oh, well, shit, that would change Cletus, the fucking game, dude. Well, I think about like goddamn Bernie Sanders, right? When Bernie Sanders got fucked in the ass by the DNC in 2016 and Hillary Clinton fucking stole that nomination, if he had just said, fuck you, I'm now running for the Green Party, he would have shattered the establishment. He can't do it now.
He would have hurt
because nobody gives a fuck. But dude, he would have shoved his dick in their ass. Like he had the young people, he had the disenfranchised people, he had the complete progressive movement. He had like the establishment DNC would have fucking. I mean, yes, you're right. They would have bounced back, but they would have been fucking hurting, dude. Mm-hmm. The only reason why he didn't do that is because he would have completely broke the Democratic vote, and then he would have just handed off the thing to the Republicans, right?
Right.
And that's what they say about.
And at his core, he's a bootlicker statist.
He's a bootlicker, dude. I mean, honestly, I was a fucking Bernie Sanders. I liked Bernie Sanders. I was a Bernie bro. And the second he endorsed Hillary Clinton, I was like, oh, he's a faggot. Got it. Okay. All right. And then I started listening to Dave Smith, if you're familiar with him, from Part of the Problem, and he red-pilled me on libertarianism. And then I realized I didn't have to give up that much of my identity as far as being anti-war, being like okay with gays, being anti-drug war, being all these different things. And I was like, oh, and it basically, he just taught me economics. So I was still like a fucking progressive, but like I understood economics. And I was like, oh, that's just retarded. Oh, okay, I got it. And then after that, I mean, I've steadily become more, I guess, socially conservative than a lot of my own personal beliefs, but I don't push that on other people.
Right. Well, I have like our challenge, you know, we're homeschoolers. My daughter plays volleyball. My son runs cross country. And they have a great little athletic association here because the government schools won't let our kids play. And so a mom and dad started because their daughter wanted to play volleyball and she couldn't, even the Christian schools wouldn't let her play. So they started Ignite Athletics. And so it's very Christian, and they're doing they're doing the national anthem and all that crap. And my wife and I just don't participate. We don't make a scene, Now we did have I walked into a Christian school down in Huntington. I was like 10 minutes late and I walk in and they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm like, nope. And I just turned around and walked back out and waited. And I've started slowly tiptoeing my way into relationship first with some of these parents to say, look, man, I don't do national anthems. Okay. My conviction as a Christian follower of Christ, I cannot put my hand on my heart and pledge allegiance to the empire. I can't do it, Now, I'm not going to throw a fit and I'm not going to break off fellowship with you. I'm not going to do all that, but I'm just going to say, I'm just not going to do it. Okay. You want to do it? Go ahead. That's your conviction. Fine. But I know that I have to tiptoe my way in and do it very gently so that I can have the dialogue. And then I have an opportunity to say, okay, look, everything about the state is absolutely antichrist. The war is antichrist. The military is antichrist. The flag is antichrist. And I'm not going to do antichrist stuff. Okay. But it's slow. And that's the hard part. It takes patience. And I'm not a patient guy, but I've just had to learn that over time, that I've got to slowly work my way in, build relationship. And then I can say, well, what do you think about this? Oh, conversation. What's a conversation? And then I can drop a little nugget in there and walk off. Well, I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist, right? And they're like, what? Yeah, Francis Bellamy. He was a socialist. He wrote the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, they used to do this instead of this. Little shit like that. And then you just have to drop it in their ear and let them do what they're going to do with it. So, all right. Well, I got kids I got to get in bed, and I got
Same,
to
man.
work for a living
It's
tomorrow.
fucking late, and I have to piss like a fucking racing horse.
Yeah,
Chris, this was a lot of fun, man. We're gonna have to do it again, man.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, dude. Dude, I loved hearing your story too about like. I mean, I think everybody goes through that, as far as like working your ass off. Well, maybe not everybody goes through that. I think that was a really important fucking story that you talked about, was like taking a risk, working your ass off, eating your own shit, like fucking hitting the fucking pavement and just picking your teeth out of the fucking gravel and then picking yourself back up, dude. And dude, that was a fucking powerful story. I really appreciate your honesty and how you owned your own mistakes. And dude, that was fucking amazing, dude. I really appreciate that. And
Appreciate it.
yeah, dude, this was a great conversation. Chris, thank you so much. Why don't you tell our audience one more time where they can find you and about your podcast so they can get to know you?
TikTok, Blue Ribbon Logistics, blueribbonlogistics.com, Blue Ribbon Podcast on YouTube. If you go to the TikTok page, we've got a little link in bio, and it's got a link to everything there. So, but Blue Ribbon Podcast, YouTube, that's where it's at. If you have the skills, have to be careful here, because we don't hire truck drivers. All right, because truck drivers are stupid and they're assholes, and they think the access to the universe runs to the top of their head. If you have a Class A CDL and 1 year of over-the-road truck driving experience and don't have the attitude of a truck driver, and you would like to learn how to come and run a sustainable, successful trucking business, holler at your boy.
I love it, man.
If you have the attitude of a truck driver, fuck off. I don't want anything to do with
you. Fucking A, man. Well, thank you very much, brother. I
appreciate it, man. I'll holler at you.
Later, brother.